All right, welcome back to the channel, everybody. You got Tim and this time Mike Garst with me as well, who's my occasional co-author on some books that we've written over the years that many people have read, and the comments have been awesome. The reviews have been pretty good. I will point out one thing that I'm not sure Mike ever read this one. One of my favorite reviews about our book, The Last World War, was about this guy who said we didn't understand nuclear physics or combat injuries. Uh, I'm a nuclear physicist, and Mike, why don't you tell people what you did when you were in the army
I was a combat medic.
in Afghanistan, if I
Uh,
recall, and you
yeah,
do
Southwest. Let's leave it Southwest Asia. No, I was first Gulf War
first Gulf and have a
and
little
Iraq
purple chicken award,
and yeah, the purple chicken and
the I forgot to duck fast enough award, and
yeah.
so I thought that was the coolest review ever, and it kind of dovetails into what I want to talk about today. And that is, have we gotten to a point in a society where everybody's afraid to, number one, be wrong, and number two, actually agree if you might be 98% in agreement and maybe 2% around the edge is a little fuzzy? In other words, do we live in sort of a post-civil world where everything turns into a shouting match? And I want to give a couple of examples of that before we kind of dive into it. One is that review where I'm like, okay, this guy read the book. He left a review that was kind of just, a dickhead sort of thing to do. But the older I get, the more I'm noticing certain things. And I don't think it's the fact that I'm getting older because I'm former Army, Mike's former Army. We're as crusty as they get. And this morning I had coffee with a guy who's a retired Marine, and once a Marine, always a Marine. And even he was like, Jesus Christ, people just can't sit down and have a discussion anymore without being assholes. And if a Marine is willing to call people assholes, that says a lot, right? Because Marines are about the crustiest of crusty people, no matter what. And this guy was from Podunk, nowhere in Mississippi, right? So you don't get any crustier than that. A guy who grew up around
Yeah.
alligators and stuff going, yeah, when people are being dicks, I just don't get it anymore. For a U.S. Marine to do that. And it hit me the other day in a couple of ways that I was out someplace and people said some things like, oh, and it just kind of got under my skin. But I was out like about a week and a half ago. I was out someplace and the subject of politics came up. And this was not online. This was not social media. Social media is its own little can of worms that we're not going to discuss right now. But I'm talking about in real life kind of stuff. Subject of politics came up and somebody asked me if I was going to vote one way or another on something. And I kind of wouldn't answer it for a while, but I got on my second or third glass of wine. And I was like, look, I'm not voting for that person, no matter what you tell me to go do. Oh, well, that just proves you have a small dick. I was like, well, that escalated fast. What how did we get from one of those things to another?
Since,
Like,
since when does having a small winky have anything to do with who you vote for?
well, it
I
kind
mean,
of,
both political parties suck right now. So
but
I guess
it's
everybody's got a small dick.
well, it's kind of my point, right? Is that we've gotten to a point where somebody doesn't agree with us, we just insult them until they kind of say, okay, well, I guess I'll have to agree with you because you insulted me. I'm Gen X, Mike's Gen X. We were both Army. You can insult us all day long, and it's not going to change my mind. Give me facts. Give,
Ooh, you
give,
called
yeah,
me a
exactly,
small
right?
dick. Yeah.
I was like, all right.
Bronze.
So, I've got a bunch of kids. I really don't care about having any more, so I don't give a shit. So insult me all you want. Not going to bother me in the least. But my point is, have we gotten beyond that as a world? Because it hit me that, even scientific stuff, I had people come up to me. I have a PhD in freaking physics, and I've had people come up to me going, well, I built this thing and it violates the laws of physics. I'm like, okay, you don't really understand physics that well if you believe you've built something that violates the laws of physics, because that's not how they work.
No.
Um, it may be outside of the ones we understand. More likely, it's out of the ones outside of the world that this person understands. But it gets to the point where when I just say, "Hey, look, I don't think that's the case," people are like, "Well, you need to do your homework." That's my favorite. Do your homework, right? It basically means you don't have an argument for me. You just want to push it back on me and tell me to go, fuck off, basically.
Oh, don't forget, you need to research this.
You need to research. Oh,
Not just your homework, but you need to research this.
and I'm going to make Mike's eyes roll here in a second. The other, wow, you disappeared in the virtual background. It
Ooh.
focused in on your shiny head, man. Um, it, hey, I'm just glad one of us still has hair. Uh, the, So the other day I posted some stuff on Twitter, and this is, gets into the social media side of it, but these people are real. This is not made up for social media. These people actually exist. I posted something about I can't, and all I did was just got frustrated with something, and I said, "Look, I can't believe there's still people out there that believe the moon landing was a hoax." And the number of people that came out trying to convince me I was being a sheeple because I was like, "Okay, the moon landing was like, yeah, but only 3 people knew about it." I'm like, "Okay, hundreds of thousands of people worked to send us to the moon. The Russians would have come out the moment we tried to fake it and called us out on our bullshit." I mean, and I'm the one that is a sheeple as a result of this. I mean, here's 20,000 pages of scientific evidence that says we did. Oh, who are you going to believe? Like,
Oh my God.
this was my favorite part of it. My absolute favorite part of that whole interaction with people. And that post on YouTube, on Twitter, I'd have to go look, but last time I looked at 33,000 impressions or something and like 600 comments. Um, it, I get it, but here was my favorite one. I've got video evidence it was faked. I'm like, okay, where do you have it? It's on the internet. I'm like, okay, can you send it to me? I'd like to make sure I see that. Find it yourself. I don't have time to do your homework. I'm like, okay,
Okay.
Googled it, looked it up, couldn't find it. Well, fuck you. I don't have time for you. Okay, thank you. I guess I'll just assume that you're lying. Well, and then they come back a half hour later or something with a comment. Well, I looked it up and it's been scrubbed from the internet. I got news for you. I work in the tech field. That is not the way this stuff works.
No.
You could, if you had something like that out there and it was real, it would be in so many places simultaneously. It would not be possible to scrub it from the internet because that would be front page of everything everywhere. And then everywhere, right? And then somebody pulled out, well, okay, but MK Ultra turned out to be true. I'm like, MK Ultra and the moon landing are entirely
different.
One was a tightly held military secret that's now been, kind of agreed to, kind of admitted to. There's a freaking moon landing that had like 500,000 people in the loop. I mean, come on. Really? Those are not the same thing. And the one conspiracy theory that is out there, actually, I think holds some water is I don't think there was just one guy involved in killing Kennedy, but we'll leave that for another day.
Yeah, let's not go there yet.
He had help. At a very minimum, he had help. But my point is, we've gotten past where we can actually have those rational discussions, or it turns quickly into, you've got a tiny dick, or oh, you're not a man. That's my other favorite.
Do your homework. Do your research.
Homework.
You're
do
an
your
asshole.
own research. You're an asshole. And when I called Mike about this doing this kind of discussion, he reminded me of something. Let me share my screen. I think this will work. And make sure you can see it. Mike, can you see that?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, if I go in full screen, do you still see it?
Yeah, I've got it. I've got yeah, just go.
All right, you see it.
Fox, I want you 2 turds to clean the head. I want that head so sanitary and squared away that the Virgin Mary herself would be proud to go in there and take a dump. I'm joking. Do you believe in the Virgin Mary? No, sir.
Oh, come on.
I don't believe I heard you correct. Sir, the prophet said no, sir. Oh, you little maggot. You make me want to vomit. You goddamn covenant heathen, you had best sound off that you love the Virgin Mary, or I'm going to stomp your guts out. Now, you do love the Virgin Mary, don't you? Sir, negative, sir.
Pause it right there.
Trying to offend me? Sir, negative.
So right there, I think is a really good point, or as a really important point. And he turned around and he asked again, do you love the Virgin Mary? And Private Joker turns around and says, sir, no, sir. Now, leaving out the fact that people are going to throw shit fits that he's saying, sir, no, sir, instead of, yes or no, drill sergeant, leave that shit out because it's the Marines and, they were crazy back then. Yeah. He brings up a good point. And the next line that we heard a little bit is are you trying to offend me? And I think that dovetails exactly into what we're talking about. And if you want to roll back into it, the rest of the sequence is really pertinent to this topic right now, because what Joker says, and this was, this movie was done back in the 90s, I think, 80s or 90s.
Mhm.
And it simulated a time back in the late 60s, early 70s. And it is, I mean, Jesus Christ, it's almost foreshadowing
Mhm.
of today's mentality, and it's scary.
Like, oh, you offended me, therefore,
Yeah.
that's the end of this conversation. And I got news for you. I personally, it takes a lot to offend me. It really does, including you can tell me I have a small dick. I don't care. It's not going to offend me in the least. Tell me my kids are ugly and we might have a fight about that one, but that's a whole nother story. But you're right in that we can't be offended. It's like we're not allowed to offend somebody, and sometimes that's okay to offend somebody. But also, I think also we've gotten to a point where we're so hyper focused on looking for something to be offended about that people are just not happy unless they're offended by something. It's like the other day I was out someplace talking about a science fiction book, and somebody was like, "Oh, that book is racist. I can't read it." I'm like,
Yeah.
what the hell are you talking about? And it was a book called Lucifer's Hammer, and there's some argument that it was racist. And I'm like, okay, I
Yeah.
don't think so. But we had the discussion, and somebody's like, well, it offends me that you don't see it that way. I'm like, all right, we're not gonna be friends, I guess.
Whatever.
Um, but
Play the rest of
some
the sequence though, because I think the rest of the sequence is important as well. And I agree with what you're saying. It's that people today are looking for a microcosm to look for offense.
yeah, here we go.
Sir, the prophet believes that any answer he gives will be wrong, and the senior drill instructor will beat him harder if he reverses himself, sir. Who's your squad leader, scumbag? Sir, the squad leader's Private Snowball, sir. Private Snowball. Sir, Private Snowball, what you got it, sir? Private Snowball, you're fired. Private Joker is promoted to squad leader. Sir, sir. Disappear, scumbag. Sir. Private Kyle. Sir, Private Kyle, 40 sword, sir. Private Kyle, from now on, Private Joker is your new squad leader, and you will bunk with him. He'll teach you everything. He'll teach you how to pee. Sir, yes, sir. Private Joker is silly and he's ignorant, but he's got guts, and guts is enough. Now you ladies carry on.
So for me, what's important to that is that Joker's stuck by his guns. And he flat out laid it out in a sensible manner, saying to his DI, whatever I say is going to be wrong to you. And if I go back and say, oh yes, I do believe in the Virgin Mary, now that you've called me out on it, you're just going to beat the crap out of me more. So I'm just going to sit here and say, you know what? No, I'm going to stay with my original answer, stay with my convention. No. And you're just going to beat the shit out of me no matter what. So, but having the argument, having the logical argument, at least the DI was like, okay, at least you can stick your convictions, and had a rational discussion. They agreed to disagree. And that last comment, he may be ignorant, but he's got guts. Agree to disagree, move on with your lives. And that's what's missing today.
We don't do that anymore. It's like, agree with me or else. The number of times I've had people tell me that. It baffles me. Like I was out at a business meeting the other day, and somebody was trying to convince me that you could do something. And I work in the technical field, and I won't get into details, but it was like, oh, we could build this, and it's only going to cost X number of dollars to go build. I'm like,
no, it's not.
Raw material alone will cost you about that much, but do you expect all the people building it to work for free? I'm like, well, yeah, they'll volunteer. I'm like, no,
They won't.
That's not how this stuff works, right? And people are like, well, you don't understand. I'm like, it's the right thing to do. I'm like, okay, and I have these arguments with people all the time. My ex-wife and I used to have this fight all the time. She'd say, I want this. I want it to be this way. I'm like, okay, but that's not the world we live in, right? The world we live in is over here. I get that you want this, but here's where we are. And to get from here to here, here's the action that's going to happen. I don't care, just make it happen, but make it happen today. I'm like, okay, awesome. Good for you.
Yay.
It's like, we see these protests popping up all over college campuses, and I saw one yesterday that just cracked me up. These kids went on a hunger strike, and then they went out with bullhorns to complain that the school wasn't properly monitoring their health because they were on a hunger strike. And all the school really did was send a doctor out to give them some pamphlets that said, you need to eat or it's bad for your health. Like, well, the school needs to come out and make sure we're okay. I'm like, I'm going to set myself on fire and you need to make sure I'm fine at the end of that. What the hell kind of sense does that make? And by the way, I did find the local ones that were having a hunger strike here, and I did send them Uber Eats from a deli. I thought it was funny. But
Hopefully it was ham.
I was from a Jewish deli.
Even better. Did they
So,
take it?
no, they refused it. I had to give them credit for that, but I thought it was funny. I mean,
I think it's a riot.
anyway. But the thing that gets me is like, we've gotten to a point where it's like, you need to do exactly what I say you do or else. And some of these protesters you see out there are making no sense because they're like, well, the school needs to make sure that there's peace in the Middle East. What the hell's the school got to do with peace in the Middle East? And number two, you protest all you want about a war going on. I get that, right? I'm a veteran. You're a veteran. I know a lot of veterans. I've suffered from PTSD. You've suffered from PTSD. None of that is a good thing. We need to not be in war. War needs to be an absolute last resort, and I think it's used way too soon. But when you're in it, you need to be in it to win it. And protesting a war that's going on, that I get. Okay, peacefully protesting a war. But now we got these protests going on that are having college campus graduations canceled because they can't guarantee the safety of the students, and that's just messed up to me. Right? I mean,
Yep.
if I can't come on, if I've gone to college, worked my butt off for 4 years and I'm going to go to graduation, but I can't because you want to go protest a war and my safety is in question. This is a problem, right? That's you're protesting for peace, but you're not doing it in a way that allows people to live in peace.
Well,
I'm confused.
yeah.
Right?
And to take that one further, I heard another one, similar topic. This morning is that there was one protester that was complaining that she wasn't able to graduate because she was part of the protest because they canceled the graduation. So she was part of the protest. They canceled the graduation, and now she's complaining that she doesn't get to graduate. So she doesn't get to walk and she's complaining and she's crying about it. Just big old freaking crocodile tears. And it's like, you got to understand that you're going to have consequences for your actions. And you're going to take over a building or a quad or whatever, and you're going to disregard the directions of the people that are to maintain and safeguard those facilities or those lands. You're going to have to face the consequences on it. And if that means you don't walk, sorry, there's a lot of people I know that have said a lot harsher consequences, like you lose all your credits and you have to start over again and you're not getting a refund.
No, I mean, that is an interesting point because it's like we've kind of gotten to a point, I think, and I think I see it more than some people do because I'm not married and I'm kind of out on dates with different people once in a while, and I see some interesting things go on where people get very demanding, and it's like they always assume somebody else is going to come in and fix their problem, right? It's like, oh, I created this big mess, now here, fix it for me. Can't you just? It's like
Yeah.
I was going out with somebody for a while, and they were over at my place, and I noticed they were leaving their bills on my computer keyboard. Apparently, I was supposed to pay them. I was like, I think you left your mail here. And apparently she took offense to that. And I was like, I had never offered to pay it. I never did. And she was like, oh, you're not going to fly my friends and I around the country. I'm like, no. And this was just a couple months ago that this happened. So it was like, this is,
We ain't doing that.
and these people are, I mean, I'm in my 50s. This is somebody who's in their late 40s. By the way, that same person, and this is something else I was supposed to fix. And I would warn people that this is not a good way to live through life. And you can disagree with me if you want, but it is what it is. Is still a student, trying to get a doctoral degree, but it's like a fifth degree for this person. Like they've got 4 other degrees. Now they're trying to get a 5th one. I was like, why don't you just quit going to school and work full time? Because, you know, you've got all this background. So, well, if I quit going to school, I have to pay back my student loans. So I'm just going to keep going and accruing more debt. And it was up to like $250,000. And on top of that, there was, you know, $50,000 in credit card debt. And this person got upset because they couldn't open another credit card because they maxed out everything else. And I'm like,
Oh my God.
and you want me to help? You want me to just fix it? I'm like, that's not how this works, right? I mean, come on, really? I mean, be a grown up, right? Own up to your shit. And if you're going to go off and do all this stuff and you're going to accrue this debt, and I'm not saying everybody that takes on student loan debt is like that, but that's an extreme case, right? But if that's one person, I guarantee you there's more than one person that's doing that sort of stuff. And a lot of this person's loans were not government back loan, they were private loans. So they were actually taking out the government back loans as well as the private ones up on top of that, because they were going to a private school. So it was bad. I mean, I looked at it, I'm like, you better get a job that pays like 400K a year or you're going to have real issues. But we've gotten to the point in a society where, and this is one of the things that bugs me, and it goes back to 2008, where this has just annoyed the shit out of me, where it's like everybody wants to live on debt. They're like, oh, let's take on debt. Debt's a good thing. Well, in some cases, debt can be a rational thing to go do. Take out a home loan, take out a car loan. Those things are rational. Extreme credit card debt is not. But what we're doing now is we're looking for people to bail each other out. Like, because in 2008, this one pissed me off. When the housing crash happened, we bailed out the banks, but we screwed the homeowners, right? In a lot of ways. Okay, you can say, well, the homeowners took out risky loans. Yes, but the bank should have stopped issuing that shit a long time before that. The banks actually had these sort of things that they called liar loans, with no documentation required at all. You just walk in and say, yeah, I make 400 grand a year. And they'd be like, okay, cool.
Okay.
It's like, well, they passed that liability on. And that I understand, you know, the consumer shouldn't have done it. But by the same token, they weren't really checking income. They weren't really checking anything else. So the bank didn't live up to his responsibilities. And they knew it. I mean, it was flat out just kind of known. And they got bailed out. Okay. Fast forward to today. Now you've got interest rates going up, you've got housing prices going up, and the banks will loan you a lot more money than they used to. And what I mean by that is, like in 1970, give or take, it's been a while since I looked at the numbers. The average home in the United States was sort of 2.5 times the average income in the United States. And now the numbers are like the average home is like 8 times the average income in the United States. So for somebody starting out trying to buy a home, yeah, you can get the loan, but that's not a good thing. And what's
you can't
that
pay for it though?
Yeah, you can't pay for it. So then what's that next time we look at it and go, well, we fix it for me, fix it for me. And we've got this whole society now where people are afraid to be wrong. They won't admit they're wrong. They're going to fight with each other, and somebody else is supposed to fix everything for them. Who the hell's left to fix shit? And if we can't actually do this sort of like private joker thing where it's like, okay, hey, you got guts, you know, and maybe you're a little smarter than I gave you credit for. You're in charge now, right? And you know, anyway, I don't know where this whole thing is going societally, but if we cannot possibly sit in a room and every once in a while admit we've made a mistake, that to me is going to lead to the downfall of a whole bunch of stuff as we go into this sort of the next 5 years, where AI is about to take over more jobs than people really understand it's going to take over. And I know somebody's about to come at me with, oh yeah, but it'll replace it with other jobs. I'm like,
No, it won't. It's not. That's the problem.
some new jobs will be created, more jobs will be annihilated. And the other thing everybody tells me, and I work in AI, so this is my industry, um, is well, yeah, but maybe those are jobs we didn't need, and it'll create other jobs that pay better. Sure, but there's a lot of missing ones. And what happens to the economy? And we're not even thinking about this because we can't get along. Remember, that's the whole point here. We can't get along to actually discuss a rational problem. What happens to the economy when we're used to 2 income families? One of those 2 loses their job, and they say, okay, well, we'll just drop down to 1 income and fire the nanny. We won't go out to eat. We'll, you know, all this. It has a secondary ripple effect that's going to be far more reaching than people think it is.
Yes.
Because I went to the grocery store this morning and there's this talk about it. We can't even agree on what freaking inflation means, right? It's like cost of living goes up. We can't even agree on that, because one news station will say inflation is high, another news station will say it's under control. And what they're doing in some cases, they're taking food and fuel out of the inflationary numbers. Those things matter, right? Because I got to get to work and I got to eat, right? I mean, and if you're living paycheck to paycheck, food.
That right there takes up the majority of your paycheck.
Yeah. And so we can't get along as a society. So we can't discuss the real problems because nobody's going to want to even agree on the terminology we use. And we've got to get to a point where we can actually look at each other and go, okay, let's at least have a rational discussion about a problem that matters, a problem that actually affects people's lives, instead of just arguing about superficial ones. That's the thing that gets me is we can't even have a rational discussion about a real problem. We got to make shit up. Like, and personally, I'm Gen X and I'm going to offend somebody with this. I don't give a shit what pronouns you want to use. If you want to use they, theirs, them, that's fine. I'll be respectful and I'll call you that. But the moment you start getting in my face and calling me all kinds of names like incel and other shit, I no longer give a flying fuck what your pronouns are because your pronouns are asshole and butt munch. Right?
Yeah. But and the other okay, now the pronouns thing for me is I don't give a shit what your pronouns are because I don't give a shit about you until you can prove to me that you're actually worth something.
Mhm.
I'm not going to care one way or another for you.
Mhm.
And that'll probably catch me a lot of shit on this. So if you come up to me and you identify as a freaking hippopotamus or a fucking giraffe or whatever, and I go, hey man, what's up? And you lose your shit, that's not my fault because I don't know who the fuck you are. I've never dealt with you, and you're not wearing a fucking sign that says, I identify as a hippopotamus, address me as hippopotamus. You can't expect me to fucking read your mind and understand that you've got some sort of delusion of grandeur that you're going to run around as a hippopotamus today.
If somebody asks me politely to call the Zimbabwe Mau Mau, I'll do it. I don't care.
Yeah.
Right? Just don't be a dick about it. That's all I'm saying. We've got to get back to a point as a society where we can have rational discussions. And that's one of the reasons, in my house, I'm surrounded by fiction books. They're just everywhere, pick a shelf, they're all over the place. And there's a lot. Mike's the same way. He's, last count, what was it, like 800 on a Kindle or some weird number?
I think I'm just under 1,000 now.
Yeah, something insane. But the reason I like to read and the reason I encourage it in my kids is there's a lot of psychological studies out there that say that's a great place to learn empathy. It's a great place to learn having a rational discussion, especially on the fictional side, because it involves people interacting and you see great examples of it. But instead we end up with like this is where we're at because that's what social media teaches us is sort of correct.
Or we get this.
Oh my God. Yeah. I was out at dinner the other night and then I looked around the restaurant and I see nothing but people like dinner for two, but it's dinner for four because they're all on their phones. And
yeah,
it was a nice restaurant too. It was a nice sushi place. I was out with my kids.
So I went and took the kids to school this morning and literally, the school's around the corner. The situation with my kids. So the school's around the corner and I'm dropping my daughter off first. And as after I dropped her off, I'm going to the other side of the school to drop my son. So I retrace the route that I go. And there's this person that's on a tricycle built for an adult, a not like a big wheel or anything like that. Not like the classic, what you picture in your tricycle and Georgie riding it before Pennywise gets to him. Picture more like a motorcycle tricycle, but pedal.
Okay.
And it's for a person that's got some mobility issues and balance issues and stuff like that. I've seen the person riding on it before in our neighborhood. It's no big deal. It's actually kind of cool. Except for this morning. We had a bunch of rain the last couple of days, so there's a lot of standing water still. She's pedaling on the bike, going real slow, talking on her phone. Just da 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 da. And she is kind of weaving on a 2-lane road each direction. And she's taking up an entire lane and traffic is like backing up. People are trying to get to school. And I literally yelled out the windows. I'm going by, get off your fucking phone.
I was I was at a Grand, so I live in North Dallas, and there's this place called Grandscape that has a whole bunch of stuff, restaurants and coffee shops and Nebraska Furniture Mart, some other stuff. And I was over there, and I'm pulling through the parking lot, and there's these people walking from their car in, and they're like this, not looking up to see if a car's coming,
Yes. Oh my
walking into the
God.
middle of the damn street.
Yes. Oh my God.
Not at a
I catch
crosswalk, just okay.
in the fucking herd.
Yeah. So I think the point I'd like people to understand is that you're not the only one in the world. There are other people out there. And if you want people to treat you with respect, that's a two-way street. Okay. And if you want to just insult people into trying to do things your way, guess what's going to happen?
You're going to get insulted back.
That shit's coming right back at you. Right. I don't care if you're a man, if you're a woman, if you're a child. Children are a little bit different. You have to teach them a little lesson. It's a little bit different. But like the other night when I was out and like this 40-plus-year-old woman tells me because I didn't vote the way she wanted me to, I have a small dick. I'm like, okay, cool. I had 17 insults that was running through my head, or I could just be like, you know what? Have a good night. And I just turned around and walked away, which I think bothered her more that I wasn't willing to, stand up and have the argument. And again, that's an extreme case, but think about that. That's not social media. That's me out somewhere having a rational discussion with, or sort of trying to have, a social time with some friends. So,
And with the social media aspect, it gets worse because you've got the anonymous keyboard warriors that will just keep it going. And I remember, God, this was a couple of years ago, and someone said something stupid. And I was like, wow, dude, impressive for living in your mom's basement, man. You just need to chill out, relax, and just let it go. And 2 minutes later, there was a paragraph and a half diatribe about my ethnicity, my parents' lineage, and things that were not structurally feasible to do with myself. And it's like, I replied, dude, take a breath. You need to worry about your blood pressure because you're getting worked up just because I think what you said was stupid and I said it, but just relax, buddy. Calm down. It's okay. Have a nice day. Oh, and then big long diatribe again. And it finally got to the point. It's like, dude, calm down or you're going to have a stroke. Big long diatribe. And someone else chipped in, ooh, you just got burned. It's like, no, I didn't. I'm not going to engage with a fucking idiot.
So I saw that one on Twitter. I had this whole comment thread about something, and I was like, look, it was about this topic of, can we just try to get along a little bit? And somebody's like, well, yeah, but sometimes when people are wrong, it's just better to dunk on them. I'm like, it's not. Okay. And what you view as dunking is just you being a dick. I get it. Everybody wants to win the debate. If you look at politics today, there are certain politicians, including a senator from Texas. I won't say who, but if a cruise missile hit his house, I might not be terribly upset. I'm not advocating violence against one of our sitting politicians. I'm just saying Ted Cruz has
his name rhymes with snooze.
His name rhymes with snooze, yes. Who seemingly believes that politics begins and ends on the debate floor. It's like, oh, I won the debate, therefore it's over. Like,
no.
You framed an argument based in 27 little tiny assumptions, and you got to this little answer here, but you ignored a bunch of real world shit, right? That actually matters to say, well, within this certain set of parameters over here, I'm exactly right. Like, but that's a tiny ass little microcosm nobody gives a shit about. Yeah. We have real problems.
For your little part here, yes, but for everything that comes around it, you're a fucking idiot.
Yeah. So, and I could pick on Democrats as well as Republicans on that one because they both do it. But it, and I voted, I live in Texas, so that tells you usually what party I sit in. But if I can't pick on my own party, there's something wrong with me. And yeah, I have thought about running
on both parties. They both suck.
They do. And there's somebody who actually was trying to talk me into running up against that particular senator. And I'm like, you know what? I don't, no thanks.
No, you don't need the heart attack.
I do not need I don't, I, I, I would walk out of every debate going, yeah, okay, maybe his debate style wins, but his problem solving fucking sucks. That, and we have discovered that involved in politics, it is nice to have a brain mouth filter where you at least present things nicely. And I do not
Yeah.
possess a filter.
Epic fail on that one, brother.
I don't possess a filter. Like my own kids will ask me questions and I'll be like, do you, but I subscribe to my kids are older, so they're not little kids. And if anybody ever watched that 70s show, my kids have now seen it and they refer to me as the Red Foreman of dads. I was like,
Yes.
a
Yes.
workplace
Yes.
dumbass.
Yes.
I could argue with you for a half hour. I could look at you and go, hey, dumbass. And it just
Dumbass.
solves every problem. All right, we should probably leave it at that because I do have things, it's getting to be a long
Yeah.
video. But
I will leave you with one note on that last part. I'm raising Walter from Jeff Dunham. I'm raising Walter.
I do like his jalapeno on a stick.
Yes.
Was it
Yes.
the Ahmed the Dead Terrorist?
Yes. But yeah, no, I agree. My kids are fully knowledgeable about the Red Foreman School of Child Rearing. You dumbass.
Dumbass. It solves every problem. And mine now, and I will leave this with everybody who wants to pick on my parenting skills, however you want. My kids, until recently, had not seen Happy Gilmore, and now they cannot wait to go golfing next time. And I did get a call from my daughter's school this week, and she is in 5th grade.
Oh Lord.
And I showed her Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
Yes.
And apparently at lunch, my daughter sat in front of a bunch of people and goes, pardon me, can I go to the bathroom? And a teacher overheard that and she just goes, thank you. And a lot of kids apparently felt she actually pooped or peed herself. And she was just making the joke that Ruprecht made in the movie.
Oh my God.
And somehow I got in trouble for it. And the teacher that called me goes, I had to call you because another parent's going to call me. And yeah, can you please ask her not to do that anymore? But that was really funny. It's like,
okay, I'm gonna tell one story here just really quick.
I was so
And
proud, by the way.
yeah, you should be. I think this will get you as well. Now, I will covet this with saying that my daughter has not seen this movie. But so my daughter was in Scouts for a while, and I leaving apart the name change that they announced this morning or whatever, and whatever the hell they were called, whatever. Anyway,
As long as I can still get my cookies, I don't care.
yeah, I don't give a shit. As long as I can get Thin Mints. So she was on the way to a scout meeting, and the person that normally drove had her boyfriend drive the 4 kids. And they were all talking. The boys were in the back and they're all just about scout camp and all that. Kind of giving my daughter a little bit of shit because she didn't go. And my daughter turned and looked at my friend's boyfriend who was driving, and she looked him dead square in the face at a stoplight and goes, you know, this one time at band camp, and then just turned and faced straight, and she did it completely deadpan, and looked straight ahead, and didn't say another word. And he just looked at her. He was like, did and she, yes, I did. And we got a call later going, does your daughter need to tell us something about band camp? And we just lost it. So, and I do need to preface, she has not seen American Pie.
Well, she's not quite in the right age range for that one. She's coming close.
I will tell you, we have broken down, and she has seen certain skits from Jackass, though.
So my 5th grader, I also got a concerned phone call from somebody that she was reading the wrong books.
Oh Lord.
There are very few books in my house I will not let my kids read. there's some that have some inappropriate content for children their age, and they won't touch those because I'm not going to let them touch those. She was
Yeah,
2/3 of the
your
way through.
collection of Penthouse Forum is not up for reading.
No, I was thinking more along the lines of the gore fiction, the gore stuff that had female sex slaves, and Mike Resnick stuff about the Velvet Comet, which was the brothel in space. But
Yes.
we're not going to let him read those. But Dad's allowed to
Yes.
read those. But
Yes.
no, I do not own a copy of 50 Shades of Grey, so that's how. Those are also on bookshelves they can't necessarily find stuff on because it's stacked 27 deep with everything. But anyway, she was 2/3 of the way through Silence of the Lambs.
Nice. Good
She's
book.
11. And apparently it caused concern for people because she felt Hannibal was a really cool guy. So
Please tell me she's going around going, would you like dinner with Chianti and some nice fava beans?
no, but she has discovered that Hannibal only likes to eat the rude, and she feels that people should be far less rude, and there should be a way to thin out rude people from society. Hannibal might
By
not be
eating
the
them.
right answer, but
No, maybe not, but every once in a while it might be a good way to just scare the population to being polite.
it might be.
So and so was found with have his brain eaten.
So my favorite one of the Hannibal ones, and then we'll actually stop talking. And if anybody's ever not gotten into the Hannibal Lecter series of books or movies or TV shows, it's well worth doing. The TV show I think was fantastic because every episode had a culinary consultant, and I'll let your mind run away with that one.
Yeah, they're the TV show I found was a slow burn.
It was.
It was, oh my God, it was so good, but it was a slow burn. And then you just watch it and you were like, what the fuck?
But my favorite one that happened was Hannibal was very into the symphony, and I think it was a violin player or something kept screwing up.
Yes. Yep, I know
He-
what you're talking about.
Yeah, he went to the board of the symphony and he tried to say, "Hey, you got to fire this person because they're screwing up." But apparently that person was sleeping with one of the board members or something, whatever it was. And they're like, "No, we can't fire her because, that would be bad for so and so." So that person disappeared, and then Hannibal had the symphony board over to his house for dinner
And fed them to her.
and served an undisclosed gourmet,
Undisclosed meal.
really nice wine pairing though.
That's what matters. It's the wine pairing. That's what makes the meal.
Got to get the wine
But-
exactly right.
But what do you serve with a 47-year-old Argentinian?
I find a really nice, 30-year Bordeaux goes with a whole lot of things.
Yes.
If you get a nice bottle of wine, it's gonna, it's sort of like, get nice pieces of furniture. You call it eclectic, but they're all nice pieces, so they kind of go together.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe not. Please don't eat your neighbors. I'm not advocating that, but if you're gonna do it, do
Neighbor's
it with
cat's
style.
okay as long as it was with teriyaki.
And you got to admit, at the end of Hannibal, when he fed Ray Liotta his own brain because he fed him the part that involves manners, he's like,
Which was
"Well,"
awesome.
he's like, this part here, this part of the brain controls manners, so he won't need that. Let's take that out and feed it to him. Hey,
That was awesome. I liked the one the second one where after he cuts off his hand, he's on the plane and he's sitting next to that kid. The kid's like, "Can I try some?" "Oh, I don't know. Please." "Okay."
All right.
Cuts him off a little piece of the brain. Here you go, kid.
Pretty hard to come by. Anyway, we'll leave it at that. Thanks, Mike. I
No
will
problem, man.
keep working on that chapter that we're working on in the new book, which I think is going to be a burner. So we'll talk soon.